The Chiller channel was a huge gateway for me. I'd been exposed to whatever my mom watched previous to that or whatever weird shit I found at 2 a.m. It's way more than you think. Chiller brought me the things I missed out on when they originally aired. One of those is Night Visions. Night Visions originally aired in 2001, though it was meant to air the year prior, but one of our previous series, Freaky Links, took its place. I'm not upset about this. Freaky Links was a series we deserved. Then, on July 6, 2001, brooding punk poet and man of many black tees, Henry Rollins, entered our homes through the small screen. He'd probably give me shit for using the word brooding. I do love me some Rollins poetry, though. If you're familiar with Uncle Hank, you know he's more intimidating than terrifying. More on that in a moment. Night Visions was an anthology series created by Dan Angel and Billy Brown. Angel has certainly dabbled in some of the more noteworthy of the genre, from John Carpenter's Body Bags to Goosebumps to The X-Files. Then on the other hand, Brown has just as many credits and many of the same as his partner in crime. Brown has tag-teamed on many of R.L. Stine's TV projects. I get it. If Stine called me up to work on literally anything, I would be there. Horror fangirly dreams aside, Night Visions was pretty stacked for the given budget. They had actors like Timothy Oliphant, Thora Birch, Carrie Elwes, Malcolm McDowell, Miguel Ferrer, Natasha Lyonne, Pam Grier, Amanda Plummer, and Aidan Quinn. You have writing and directing talent that includes Jose Riviera, Joe Dante, Toby Hooper, and Keith Gordon. That sounds amazing so far, right? Right. I think the series often getting mixed up with the likes of Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, the newer ones, and to some extent Beyond Belief is kind of an injustice. Unfortunately, it didn't get the fair chance it originally deserved. There was a bit of overlap as those three shows were running around the same time. The showrunners had a clear idea of what they wanted the series to be, and it just quietly slipped through the cracks. First starting with Fox, who thought it was strong, but also wanted to add their flair, which brings us back to the Uncle Hank thing. It wasn't originally intended for the series to have an actual host. If anything, it would be something more of a voiceover narrator. The network actually made it a make or break situation. They either had a host or they had no show. Apparently, Gary Oldman was interested in taking on the role, but the studio pushed ultimately to have Rollins, who they had been courting, so to speak. Rollins was supposed to have a reoccurring role in X-Files, and instead they got him for this. Rollins liked the idea of being a Rod Serling. We all do, so I can't blame him. It irks me slightly that some viewers are critical of having Rollins as a host. I think it's actually one of the more memorable things about the series. Alright, now it's time for our favorite episodes. I'm going to spoil these a little throughout, so if you've never seen the series, maybe skip and circle back to this part when you've done the deed. A View Through the Window, Episode 3. This episode trips me the hell out, much like the Monsters episode, The Waiting Game. I wanted to start with this one because I think it's an episode that everyone references when it comes to the tops in anthology horror. From the beginning, you have no idea what's going on. I spent most of the time with my wheels just spinning. I really wanted Bill Pullman to get his happy ending, and I naively thought this was achievable. The tale is based on a short story called Window from Bob Lehman. Pullman plays Major Ben Darnell, a physicist army major who is brought to the middle of a desert on a special assignment. When Ben gets there, he finds what appears to be a one-way window with a view to a family on a prairie. Having split with his wife and having lost his child, he begins to romanticize a life he could still have. The army is trying to break through the window, and he finds that at certain times the barrier breaks. And that's all you need to know at this point. Pullman himself directed this one, and I think he did a rather lovely job in regards to the imagery and how the story is portrayed on screen. I have a feeling that several of you have had nightmares about this one. The Maze, Episode 11. I pretty much adore everything about this episode, and I think a big reason why has to do with the fact that it parallels my own dreams. Do you ever have that? Even more bizarre is that it's Toby Hooper's vision, and this is not the first time that this has happened with him. Toby, what are you doing? The idea that this maze serves as a portal through time is kind of great on several levels. I didn't think that the episode would go where it did a couple times, and you're thrown off immediately. It starts with Amanda Plummer. Just envision me pointing at my TV like Rick Dalton. Also, I don't think I've ever been offered a DVD or DVD player in exchange for a date. It's kind of a white van candy scenario for cinephiles. Thora Birch is an awesome lead, and definitely a legend amongst the spooky, cynical gals. This episode also utilizes liminal horror before we coin the phrase. The ending serves as a bittersweet reminder to us all. Bitter Harvest, Episode 8. Who is one of the all-time creepiest dudes? My number one guy. You likely will not guess on the first or probably second and third tries. It's Jack Palance. I mean, Torture Garden, Alone in the Dark, Craze, and this episode. When I was little, I had this irrational fear of old people. I know it's weird. And thanks to Jack Palance for reminding me. I think that's kind of the beauty of Palance as an actor. He's intimidating and his voice makes you feel like crawling under a blankie. In the episode, he plays Jake, the neighbor on the farm to Brendan Fletcher's character Shane, who keeps trespassing to fish in his pond. One day, Jake catches him, and while trying to chase him, slips into a running wood chipper and loses both of his arms. Instead of telling Shane's parents that he's the reason behind the accident, he instead tells them that he was fishing in his pond and in exchange for this wants Shane to help him around the farm. What Shane doesn't know is that the old man is pushing for a little karma. There's so many unsettling moments in this, and the relationship between Fletcher and Palance only elevates the situation. The ending is fucked.
You're gonna have a little brother or sister, Shane. Somebody you can take care of, play with.
But the roller coaster of emotions that you're taking on are a delightful thrill. Patterns. Episode 13. I feel like I would fail all of you if I left this episode off the list. Another reason we're choosing it has to do with the chemistry between the two actors, similar to why I chose Cutting Cards and our Tales from the Crypt episode. In this case, you get Malcolm McDowell and the late and extremely great Miguel Ferrer. The focal point of the episode revolves around Martin, portrayed by McDowell, who must persuade psychiatrist Dr. Dan Critchley, played by Ferrer, that his tics are the key to preventing the world from ending. Now, if I'm being truly honest, Cutting Cards edges this out because Walter Hill. Writer Philip Levins does make this one worth the watch, but it feels like it needs more time. Levins wrote and served as story editor on some of my favorite Smallville episodes in season 1, so he stays in my good graces forever. The final 10 minutes of the episode stand out as the most powerful, and McDowell's closing line leaves you thoroughly satisfied.
You have the contract now.
The Occupant, episode 6. This is one I missed on the first go-around. I'm kind of glad I did because I think younger me would have been scared to be in the house alone. Well, adult me actually got pretty freaked out too. Even though the whole alone in the house thing is not new to horror, it still plays with you after, especially if it's done well. Bridget Fonda, who I dearly miss seeing on screen, plays Mary, a single woman who believes someone else is living in her home. This is a bit of a different twist on there's someone inside the house. No, it's not some psychotic British guy or some college freshman. I think the story is really good at building tension and revealing the truth slowly. It keeps the surprise twist hidden until the end.
She really thinks this is her house?
Yes, she does.
Poor thing. She must be crazy.
Which makes it super interesting to watch and keeps you hooked until the big reveal. Can I also add that anytime anyone is hiding in a closet in a horror movie or series, my blood pressure automatically goes up? You think that after seeing the scenario play out several times that you would have some sort of expectations, but the expectation is that you're just gonna fall for it all over again. God, I love this genre. For this series, having only one season, I must admit that I love all the episodes. Which ones are your favorites? Well, where can we watch this? If you seek it out, you will find it. Want something more physical? You get nothing. Can we go back to our early 2000s roots and just burn it onto a DVD-R? I'm somewhat surprised this never got a physical release and also never went to streaming. Should I blame Fox? I have no problem with this. How did this end and where are we now? With Night Visions getting moved from Fox to Sci-Fi mid-season and ending with a weird anthology movie, which was just the last few episodes minus the host, we should have known that a second season was not in the cards. I will forever be grateful that it went into syndication on Chiller, though. There are episodes I feel like I may have caught on Fox, but I remember watching it in its entirety on Chiller. Fox didn't know what they had, which is not a surprise from a network that will either pull good shows or run them into the ground. Remember when Fox was a genuinely great network? How long ago was that? Night Visions didn't pull any punches. For what they had to work with, they left lasting impressions with the tales they presented each week. The great tragedy of the show was that we had such a strong start and never got another season.